Welcome to what is our third in our speaker series here at TIDEL. The goal of these speaker series are to really bring interesting people who are doing work directly in faith-based innovation or doing work outside of faith-based communities, but have things that we think or might believe are of relevance and import to those doing innovation within faith-based communities. And so we've had some speakers from outside of the faith-based world. And today we are going to squarely look at a really, really important topic in the world of technology and innovation. And so excited for today's chat. I'd like to introduce myself. I am the Vice President of Learning Innovation and Strategic Initiatives here at Union Theological Seminary. As part of that role, I coordinate and work closely with staff on a few different initiatives, and the Technology Innovation and Digital Engagement Lab is one of them. I'm very lucky to have a great colleague in Dr. Gabby Kudrow-Wiltz, who is our Fellowship Program Director at TIDEL and an accomplished innovator, faith-based leader, technology aficionado in her own right. And she will be leading today's conversation and introducing our guests. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gabby.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. David is all things digital at Union and has just been a godsend. So hey everyone, welcome to our third conversation in this series. We have just been having such a good time in this conversation series. This is our third conversation in about 6 weeks. That's how much we love it. And so some of you, I'm seeing some familiar names. You've been to all three. If you've been to all three, drop it in the chat. Just type in all three. That's me. That's what you're gonna say. If it was you, if you've been in all three, that's me. I see a few who have, but I am thrilled to first of all acknowledge the TIDEL fellows that are in the room. We are a strong cohort of 41 individuals from all across this nation. I see Dr. Gail Davis on here, and there are some others who will join. But we are just so proud of them and the work that they are doing. This fellowship launched at the end of last year. They were accepted at the end of last year, and it launched at the beginning of this year and runs until next year, next summer. And so we're just so thrilled about the work we get to do here at the Technology, Innovation, and Digital Engagement Lab. It is my joy to give leadership to this fellowship. All right, so we all came because we want to hear about artificial intelligence and whether it is helpful or harmful to faith communities. And I could think of no better person than my colleague and brother, not brother by blood, but brother in spirit, Reverend Dr. Justin Lester. And so let me introduce him a little bit, and then we're going to get into this conversation. By way of housekeeping, we're going to break for Q&A at about 12:30. So we invite you, we encourage you to start to hold some questions. You might have come to this webinar with a question, or something we talk about might spark a question. If you can't hold it, put it in the chat, and we'll get to it when we get to it. But otherwise, please be ready at 12:30 to lift your questions up. This is a space that we created because we had 3 times the number of applicants than we had space in our fellowship. But what that said to us was there is a strong desire in faith-based communities to do the work of technology and innovation. And so our speaker series is where we get to have conversation and connect with folks all across the nation who might not be our fellows, but who are our comrades in this work. And so this speaker series is all about engagement. It is what you make it. And so please don't feel like there are any simple questions or questions that shouldn't be in the space. So Reverend Dr. Justin Lester has his MDiv from Vanderbilt University, his doctorate of ministry from Boston University. His dissertation is Let's Play Church, Gamifying New England Black Church Revitalization, right? I love it. He is, I would say, one of the first folks to get to the world of tech and innovation, gaming, and now AI. He is the author of a book entitled Necessary Endings. He's the pastor of Friendship Missionary Baptist Church in Vallejo in the Bay Area of California. And he is the co-mentor to the brand new track at United Theological Seminary entitled The Emerging Tech Sustainability and Transformative Leadership Doctorate in Ministry. And so if anybody's in here thinking about some doctoral work, thinking about that focus, Union Theological Seminary launched a DMin recently, and United Theological Seminary has many tracks, but Justin is a co-mentor to one of the newer tracks. And so you can ask questions about that too, if that resonates for you. So Justin, welcome to the space.
Hey man, this is awesome. Dr. Gabby, thank you so much for the invitation. This is so fun to me. To all of you who are engaged in this work, kudos to you. You're a couple of years ahead of a lot of our churches, but I think the best barbecue is Sacred Cow. So let's have some fun cooking something new today. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and let's have some fun today.
I love it. I love it. So Dr. Lester, let's get into it.
Yeah.
As I mentioned for everyone, please feel free to put in the chat your questions if you can't hold them, but we want to have a little bit of a conversation before we open it up. So artificial intelligence, right? AI. It is not really a new conversation, but I think it has reached the cresting point where now when you say it, people don't say, what's that?
Yeah.
And so while they may not understand it, it at least has reached the lexicon of most individuals who try to stay up to date on the work. And you know, the driving concern, right,
hmm
is AI gonna take the place of jobs? Is it to threaten us, right? I think
Yeah.
about it in music, what the cassette tape was to the 8-track, what the CD was to the cassette tape, what MP3s were to the CD, what the DVD player was to the VCR, what Netflix is to the movie theater. I mean, we're always in this conversation of emerging and evolving technologies, right?
Yeah.
And when it first comes, the concern, the fear is always, is this going to hurt us more than it's going to help us?
Yeah.
And what I have found in my work is that in faith communities, we tend to kind of let's see how it plays out
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
before we try it out. But much of our work at TIDEL is trying to walk alongside our
Yeah.
community leaders
Yeah.
as they bravely and courageously try out some technologies
Yeah.
before it gets to the point that we
Absolutely.
know the be all end all of how it's
Yeah.
going to play out. And so let's talk about the ethics of artificial
Yeah.
intelligence. Let's talk about the pros and cons, and what is the ethical implication
Yeah.
of doing AI in a way that honors our commitment as people who lead faith-based organizations and congregations.
Absolutely. So let me start at the beginning of it. So AI is not going to replace people, but it's going to replace people who don't use it, right? So it's not going to. The thing about AI is it's the data that's going into the AI, right? So what everyone the fear, not everyone, the fear of artificial intelligence is called artificial general intelligence, when AI begins to think for itself. And we're not there yet. We're years away from AGI, right? So artificial general intelligence is when AI is going to be able to create more information, build its own information, give facts, do research, all of that. And that's a hypothetical, and we're not all the way there yet. So right now, AI really is a tool. I see it as like the way to enhance your treasure map of your organization, of your church, right? So trying to navigate through like multi-generational ministry, for example. If you're looking at how to navigate through that in your community, AI is going to be able to assist you in navigating that in terms of taking your sermon or taking your lesson or taking a Sunday school lesson or whatever that is, a Sabbath lesson, and applying it to multiple generations, making images, making videos. It's to enhance right now, right? So it's not going to replace people, but it will replace those who don't use it. And so that's where you're able to shave off hours of your week because you're able to enhance it through using an LLM, a large language model.
Hey, say that again. You're able to shave off hours of your
Hours of your
week
week.
by, come on, just give me 2 seconds about that.
Yeah.
What does that
So
mean?
yeah. So what that means is that, so think about, a lot of a lot of our communities, you're gonna have a graphic person, an administrator, you're gonna have a marketing person, you're gonna have your social media person. So now you're creating graphics, you're taking those graphics, getting the right caption, uploading the caption, cutting the video. You in your sermon, right? You got your commentaries on paper or on websites. You're going through Logos. You're getting everything out, trying to organize your sermon, getting applied, segmenting that, getting over to your youth pastor, get the youth pastor to apply it to them, getting it to the musicians. We want this type of music. We want these type of graphics. There's an app called Gamma where you can create a PowerPoint in 30 seconds. You don't need a webmaster. There's an app called whatchamacallit, not Opus. Opus can create your sermon clips in 30 seconds. Literally, it'll take a YouTube video, cut your sermon clips down or cut your lesson clips down and get them out. You use Predis and it'll automatically schedule it for you. And so now spending $30 a week on two apps, sorry, $30, sorry, a month on two apps compared to the personnel costs or to your costs changes everything, you know. So for example, in my context, I finish preaching on Sunday, we throw it on YouTube, and literally by the time I get home, my clips are done, my images are done, all that stuff is just done because the transcript automatically is uploaded into our Taja, which is optimizes our AI. And now instead of us having to worry about social media optimization or any of that, it's done. The same thing for media mini chat, right? So we use mini chat. We can get to use cases later too, but the way to
Hold on
shape
one second,
our
Justin. Hold on one second, Dr. Lester. I apologize. I want to pause you for a moment because I've gotten a direct message from someone in the chat, someone in the room who says they can't write this fast enough.
got
They're
it. Sorry.
asking if you can slow down a touch.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
then some are asking if some of these things can be put in the chat. So for
Absolutely.
those who are willing to just kind of drop things in the chat as we
Got it.
talk, we will welcome that and appreciate that. But I've got a request for you to slow down because the people they want to take in what you're giving us.
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind just giving us go back a little bit
I'll go
to
back.
some of the apps that
Yeah.
chop up your week,
Yeah.
and then to your other point. But just the folks are tracking with you. They just need
Oh,
you
you're
to slow
good.
down a little
Yeah. My bad. Yeah. I love this stuff. So yeah. So
we appreciate the passion.
Yeah, so I'll tell you guys this. So to create websites or code, right? There's a DevOps infinity loop, and the development ops infinity loop says that when you create code, you begin to create it, and then you monitor it, you implement it, you monitor it, you create it, and it's just constant loop, right? And so to me, I created this pastors infinity loop, right? And so for leaders and pastors in faith-based communities, we have an infinity loop where you Sunday's coming no matter what. And so what apps can we use in our infinity loop, right? And so that's where, you know, you have things for research. Like if you haven't tried this, called Perplexity. Perplexity is wonderful for studying scripture. Scholar GPT, it's built into Chat GPT. So if you think about EBSCOhost and JSTOR, you can actually search scholarly journals through Chat GPT and have conversations with the journals. So those of you even studying at Union or in the title series, be able to actually take the journals you have and have a conversation with it to understand it. All of that for I think it's for free on Scholar's ChatGPT with ChatGPT 4.0. But then you go to another part of your week. So then now counseling and meetings. So now I use this app called Delphi, where I uploaded some information about me. It's completely free into this to this app Delphi, and my members are able to have conversation with Pastor Justin about Sunday sermon. So my sermon's uploaded, and they have a
I
conversation with
love
me.
that.
Yeah,
I
and if
love
someone
that.
has an issue or a problem or something like that, it notifies me of all the conversations so that I'm able to reach out to those members. The goal is to automate a lot of our processes because a lot of the things we do are just redundant. So AI comes in to automate the mundane so that we can do the things that God has called us to, right? So that we're able to be in prayer, able to be in presence and community, able to go innovate, because now it's human in the loop AI, but now where humans are able to be human, right? So that's where involvement into your community, changing the policies and laws that you are working to change to enhance the community around you, to be among people, to go to hospitals, to be present with others, and to automate, you know, your emails or responses or your calendar. That to me is the way that artificial intelligence is the lane we're in right now. Now on the
Yeah.
job replacement spectrum, we're really far away from faith-based communities. So we're about 20 years away from emotion, humanoid robots, all that type of stuff, even being accessible, not even just talk about affordable, but accessible to even get to our space. So we're on the last end of like Huang and Russ job replacement theory. We're years away from it hitting our community right now. And that's where I believe it's imperative for us as faith-based communities to be intentional about, you know, using some of the apps available to automate our processes to build your community, to build a place you serve in. Now
Right.
to ethics, and the thing about
And that's
ethics,
what I was going to say. If we could talk about the
yeah,
ethics of 20 years goes by quickly. So
absolutely,
even the ethics of preparing folks for the inevitable, because sometimes
absolutely,
we think that if we don't talk about it, it won't happen. Or if we
absolutely,
don't do it in our congregation or our nonprofit, then it
Absolutely.
won't happen. But what happens is the world evolves, and then your
Yep.
nonprofit or your congregation is behind because you
Absolutely.
knew it was coming, but you didn't know how to engage it. So ethically,
Yeah.
let's talk about that.
Yeah, so values-based leadership, right? So I believe we have to evaluate like what are our concrete values and a constant evaluation of our values. So when it comes to ethics and AI, here's the main thing for me. AI is built on human data. So everything that we put in is what it's churning out. It's called it's piston typing and predictive analytics, right? So that's why when you think about like you say something in your car and you're like, is my phone listening to me? No, it just looks at everything you look at. It takes everything that you put, all the data you put in, and gives it back to you. That's why I laugh at people who, I don't know why these people are half naked on my Instagram because that's what you look at, right? That's your algorithm. And so
Here's your
because
mirror. Here's your
yeah,
mirror.
exactly.
Your phone is your algorithm is the mirror back to you.
Exactly. And so what we have to take advantage, we have to acknowledge our values as an organization. So it's not just it really, what is it? Drucker says that once you say something 7 times, people are just starting to listen. So how clear are your
Mhm.
values for your organization? Like, are they so clear that someone that comes in whenever is able to know this is what we stand for, this is what we mean, and this is what we value? Values-based leadership is going to change it because he, artificial intelligence is only unethical because of the humans that use it, right? So it's because of our data that we put in. So, for example, a couple of months ago, there was the Taylor Swift images, right, that came out that were just hypersexualizing Taylor Swift, right? It was the data people put in that then changed that ChatGPT had to shut down for like 2 hours to take that out of its algorithm. The same
Yeah.
thing where there was a bunch of hundreds of people put in 2 + 2 = 5 into ChatGPT and threw it off because of the humans that put the data in. So for us to think about the future, it's going to be what are our values, values-based leadership, what do we hold on to particularly? That's then going to speak to, are we going to hold a love ethic that reflects who we are called to be in the world? That's going to then be the data we put in. So therefore, when something does come out or when we are threatened by something, we know that the data that's going in is the data we're receiving. So if we put bad
Yeah.
data in, if we're, all the things that we are not called to be, that's what AI is going to become. And also simultaneously, we have to also, I suggest, engage with these communities as they're growing. So are we intentionally engaging with and giving love to and honor to the people who are building these algorithms in this code, right? Are we loving on so I'm 35 minutes from Palo Alto and San Jose where we live. And so for me, we spend time at Google, we spend time at Meta to love on the people there, to share the gospel with individuals in our church who work at Google and Meta, right? Because I recognize that if I have influence on them
Hi,
here,
bad
they don't have
timing.
influence on how they code and how
Sorry,
and gets away
I'm on.
from some of the implicit and explicit bias that goes into code, right? So that's why, for
Yeah.
example, Ideogram and Bing, which I can get to in a little bit, they just started making people of color's faces better. But
Yeah.
Meta is
Yeah.
still not good at it. But that's
Yeah.
because the people that are building the code, they can only build based upon what they know. So that's where ethics is going to be the people that are doing it and the data we put in. So the people and
Yep.
the data, and our responsibility as faith-based leaders, we got to use our influence in the right way and then receive from them as they're building as well.
Yeah. So first of all, this is wonderful. And for those of you who are still like, I still can't write fast enough, don't worry. This is going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on the Union Theological Seminary YouTube page. There are many ways that you can access this information again. So just sit in, just drink from the fountain that is coming, and be in the moment. And don't worry, you will be able to re-access this again. I want to bring up something that you mentioned,
Mhm.
as it relates to really building relationship with the folks who are doing the coding, folks who are
Mhm.
doing the actual work of building out the technologies that
Mhm.
will later determine the work that we do.
Mhm.
I would imagine somebody who's on this call who might be based in Mississippi or
Mhm.
Idaho or Washington D.C. or some other place that's not perhaps as tech forward as the Bay Area or
Mhm.
as um, Denver or Austin or something, right? They might be like, I'm never going to meet those folks. But what I want to put into the atmosphere, especially for faith leaders and nonprofit faith-based leaders, maybe you run a nonprofit that is faith-based, and or you run a congregation, or you're on staff at a congregation. I want to hone in on this dimension of AI, because the reality is, I believe there's going to be a lot of bias that we're already seeing that's going to continue happening, that if we are not using our voices, right? Union Theological Seminary is a social justice oriented seminary. If we're not using our voices to speak against the bias now, 20 years from now, it's going to be a whole lot harder to undo the fact that 2 + 2 does not equal 5.
Yeah.
So the examples you gave about Taylor Swift, about 2 + 2 = 5, that's because there was a clarion call that says, hey, this is not right. Like, this is actually not true. And that had to shape. So what I want to say to anybody in the room, perhaps you're not in the same position as Dr. Lester, where you can go to Google, or where you can go to Meta, which is originally Facebook, or you can go to these other places and actually build a relationship with the coders. You may not have that, but what you can do is pay attention. You can pay attention to what's happening, and you can use your voice, and your congregation can be an advocate for AI, even if you're slow to the tech. You can be an advocate for the ethics of AI, right?
And let me jump in
so
there.
I bring up, I want to bridge something that's actually pretty interesting, and it's kind of fun too, right? We said we're gonna have some fun today, right? You do gamifying and all of that. We're gonna have some fun today. So here's my fun offering for the TIDEL speaker series. I don't know how many of you all are into hip hop, but there has been an ongoing beef between Kendrick Lamar, shout out to California, and Drake, right? We're gonna do this for 2 seconds. And one interesting AI moment, right, is that about a month or so ago, Drake uses artificial intelligence to rap, but to have his voice sound like the rapper Tupac and the rapper Snoop Dogg. And so what's fascinating is, while everybody knew it was Drake manipulating these voices, they knew it because it was talked about. It was like, y'all know he's using AI, right? And it became a conversation. But I'm thinking about faith leaders, where your voice is one of your greatest assets. And so maybe you're not, a hip hop figure that's a household name, but maybe you're a local pastor whose voice is trusted, and somebody who's looking to get your the social capital of your leadership. If they tap into that AI and manipulate their voice and go on a podcast and sound like you, then what? So just want to throw in there, I'm doing it from a fun place, but also from a place of reality. What are some of the ways, and what are some of the things, I want to say as my next question, that you would suggest that we should be mindful of and attentive to? Not suggesting we can stop folks playing around with it and innovating, right? One of the ways that Kendrick Lamar responded to that AI is in his own authenticity, and saying, you're trying to mimic us, but here's what we actually are, right? And so I'm just interested in that conversation. That's probably gonna be my last question before we get to Q&A, but I'm interested in I think the question stands. Let's go with that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so a couple things. So first, even what's happening right now with a lot of these NVIDIA, Meta, Google, they're moving to rural areas. So the Austins, the Idahos, the Montanas, the Utahs, the Mississippis, they're moving to open areas there has to be a place where these GPUs and these CPUs go, right? So all this memory that AI is needing is going someplace, right? So and there's a lot of people who are working virtually and remotely. So I think there's a couple of things into this in terms of even the context that you guys are having here at Union and TIDEL. And I think, first of all, education. So I think robotics classes. So instead of having some of the other things that we've done in our own space, we've reached out to local nonprofits and reached out to local organizations to bring in people to talk about robotics and coding, automation, and all of that, because there's money in this. I attended a conference last year called Blackest Tech. I think you would love it, Dr. Gabby, called Blackest Tech.
And I haven't been, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, it was life-changing for me, because when I got there, I was able to see people who look like me, who are also very interested in how we bring this to our communities, how we educate people. So I met some of the top leaders, people of color.
Afrotech also does this work
is phenomenal.
Exceptionally well, like at the highest level.
Yeah. And so there it is, Blackest Tech Conference. So it's a wonderful space that opened my eyes to how we educate on cryptocurrency. So for example, my first church, we bought, it was a fight for a little bit, but we bought some Bitcoin when it was a lot cheaper and then sold it and renovated half the building, right? I mean, it's just wonderful stuff that to educate on cryptocurrency, to educate on investment, to educate on robotics, educate on coding. These are the things that are coming down the pipeline. So I would suggest to all of you, have virtual sessions with individuals, whether it's younger people in your church or people around or in your context or people around your community who are doing this work. Find the high schools and the colleges, the engineering schools, because often, from what I've seen in the conversations I had at these different spaces, when I talk to people as a pastor, it was the church, they like us to run social media, but they don't want to hear what we think. And that was what hit me, where it was like, we're running social media and we're doing websites, but literally I deal with many companies, and I'm building code and I'm building algorithm. Like, these people are brilliant, so open their space up and open space for them in your church. You'd be
You say
surprised.
they don't, when you say they don't want to hear how they think, what you're saying is you're speaking in the voice of the
Of those
coders,
individuals,
that
yeah.
those individuals are being hired to do the work, but not being asked to
Yeah.
speak about the work
Yeah.
they're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're doing social
Yeah.
media and they're building websites. And honestly, right now, that stuff is all automated. But when you have individuals who are sitting down at home writing code, sitting down at home writing books, speaking at massive conferences, the opportunity for us to, in our communities is to give room to people, even to things that we're trying to understand. And you'd be surprised at the experts in the room. And that's all really the main thing for me. Be really surprised at the experts that are in the room. So, for example, in my context, I know it's a little different, but when I opened up last year and preached a series called Let's Play Church through my book, and I was talking through some artificial intelligence, I didn't realize I had two people from Google that went to our church, and they were like, "Hey,
Mm,
Pastor, can we talk about this?" So we started a
yeah.
free coding class for adults, and we have a free
I
coding
love
class for
that.
people on how to code. What is it? I was still on JavaScript. They're on some completely different now, and it's just
Yeah.
amazing the experts in the room. I think that's an
Yeah.
opportunity. Also, the people coming to rural communities. So NVIDIA, Apple, be on the lookout. NVIDIA, Apple, no matter where you are, they are planting and coming to flatland communities to build these GPUs. My
I
other
love it.
suggestion to us is, as organizations, this is where finances come in for us. There are so many investment opportunities on the low end right now for GPUs and CPUs through some of these companies, namely Nvidia, right? And so Nvidia right now, if you watch their stock, is skyrocketing. And I'm just going to say, if you want to plan yourselves for the future, take a look at what some of these companies are doing in the open doors and the not just the grants available, but the investment opportunities available for our congregations for the future. Because there's resources available and that are able to be made, and they want to educate people and they want to make sure that people know how to use this stuff as they're
Yeah.
building. So I went down to
I
NVIDIA's
want to ask
conference. Oh, go
you,
ahead.
oh, no,
Sorry.
no, say what you were going to say. And then
Yeah.
before we move to Q&A, I actually have one last thing I want to make sure you speak to.
Okay. Okay. And so all of that. So I think the opportunity, do your research, understand it, but the opportunity for you is to think about the future and look at some of the trends that are happening and then see what's available to you. So yeah.
Yeah. I love this. I have one last thing I want to make sure we get on the table because in our pre-meeting for today, we talked about this and I want to make sure it comes up. You and I talked about artificial intelligence can feel very, very threatening, very far off, but that a lot of congregations may already have some use cases
Oh
of
yeah.
using AI and they may not realize they're doing it. So, would you speak a little bit to the ways in which the average faith-based nonprofits and or congregation might already be seeing the benefit of AI in some of their habits without realizing it, to just demystify for some folks how it might actually be helpful in their context?
Yeah. So based upon how you build your website, some of the things, your cookies and the information you're gathering on people, you're already gathering information. The average person, believe it or not, by the time within 15 minutes of you waking up, you use artificial intelligence up to 17 times. The way that you use it, whether it's it's anything that is non-human intelligence, right? So the automatic lights in your room, your Google, your calendar, all of that. The same thing goes for a lot of our churches where you're using artificial intelligence to help proofread, artificial intelligence to help send some information out to you guys remember Clippy from Microsoft Word. So when you do mail merges, like all these little things where you don't have to do it, it does it for you. And so you're already using a lot of artificial intelligence. You may not be using ChatGPT. I highly recommend you do. Actually use Claude. Don't use ChatGPT. Claude just outdid ChatGPT 4.0. But so I highly recommend engaging with proofreading, engaging with organization, even some of your emails that you're sending out that automate, all that automation is all artificial intelligence. And so a lot of the little things that we try to either cast off to others or don't engage with or don't want to do, you can actually give over to artificial intelligence. And then there's a lot of opportunity to use it in terms of use cases. So for our example, our own context, we were able to get 300 guests, new guests in our community in the last 6 months. I went to go get the numbers, like 313 in the last 6 months that we were able to receive in using AI on Facebook, right? We use this piece called
What about your members? You receive what
we
with your members?
313 new guests to our church in the last 6 months using AI on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. Yeah, I mean it's simple things that we didn't really pay much for, but that's what's it. But it's automation. So there's a video that every guest gets that is automatically for me within 5 minutes of them clicking on a button, and they get a because the thing about Facebook, you get people's information if you do your ad right. And so we put this simple $20 ad out, and that's all we paid. And outside of that, you can get their information immediately. We send them a video, we get engaged with them, and there's a chat bot on our website that we're able to engage with people, and they think they're texting me, but they're talking to AI. I mean, it's all free stuff. There's opportunities that you can use to
I love it.
duplicate and even triplicate, I don't know, sure, whatever, yourself to
Yeah.
get out there so
Yeah.
that you can build your
Multiply,
to
multiply many
multiply
times over.
yourself to get the word out and get who you are out there as well. So that's just from my church, but
Yeah.
also when you get beyond church communities and like you other faith-based organizations, nonprofit organizations, there's opportunities to automate so much, and you'd be surprised how much even corrective things on Instagram, the ways that Facebook now are helping you correct your information, the funny apps we use to help build people's faces, all those little things, even YouVersion, if you use YouVersion or Bible Chat, all the ways that they've input AI to even tell you what to read today. That's not, that wasn't like getting up and like, God said, read this. It was AI looking through what you like to do and then selecting for you what you're going to read today. And so it's all these little ways that artificial intelligence is already a part of our work. But I think we have an opportunity as leaders to now shift it. So take advantage of the cookies on your website, take advantage of the data you be data-driven organizations and get as much data as possible so you can see who's your target audience. And my last thing, marketing asks the question, segmentation versus differentiation, right? So what's the segment you're going, and then what makes you different? Maximize who you are and own your own authenticity, and go have some fun. Go have some
I
fun. I was
love it.
about to go to scripture,
I
but
love
yeah,
it.
go have some fun.
Let me I love it. I love all of this. I want to get to there's at least two questions
Okay,
that have
let's
come
do it.
through the chat. We'll have more. But I do want to we named this, is it helpful or harmful? And
Mm-hmm.
we've spoken a lot about how it's helpful.
Yeah.
But I don't want to run away from the fact that there are ways that if AI is not embraced appropriately, there could be some harm. And
Yeah.
so I want to leave that in the atmosphere. We can come back for it at the end of the chat if it's not already asked in another form of a question.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to name that. I want to make sure that we speak to some of the cautionary things that folks might want to think about. But I don't want to do it now. I want to go to the questions.
Yeah.
But I want you to know that I'm coming to it.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
please.
just
And I
marking
see a
it.
couple here. Yeah, we can definitely
Yeah,
engage
I'm
it.
marking
Yeah.
it verbally. All right, so let's go to the questions. The first question is actually an amplification of a question that I named for you a little bit earlier on from Yasmin or Yasmin. Hope I'm
Mhm.
pronouncing your name correctly. But the question is just asking if you can speak to a bit of what I was talking about with voice manipulation,
Mhm.
and just kind of what you've observed, especially being in an area where things are really tech first.
Mhm.
And then I've got some responses to Yasmin that I can give you, but let's start with yours, Dr. Lester.
Yeah. So the unfortunate reality is you can't control people. And so the same thing that happened with Taylor Swift, the 2 + 2 = 5, and all the other situations that have happened over the past year and a half as people are figuring out how to use these large language models or LLMs, people will manipulate it. So whether it's my voice or what you call it, the president's voice or any CEO's voice, we've seen that with Elon Musk. We've seen that. So a couple of ways I've tried to go around in one, I'm open and honest with my church, so they know, like my church knows, and my context knows, like, hey, if you reach out to our chatbot, if it's a serious matter, because we get all the stuff, so it's all emailed to us as well. So if it's a simple thing, of what time is church service, can you pray for me today, and it's all based upon my sermons and writings and recordings from me, then they use it. If we get something that's serious, then we respond, right? So we still monitor it, and what it's called is human in the loop AI. That's what it is, technically, human in the loop AI. So it's still
Sounds like
AI.
human-centered design as
Yeah.
well.
So it's AI still, and AI is doing the simple work, but we're still in the loop. We have to be in the loop because we don't want to go down a road where it could get really messy. Secondly, too, the apps we use have some things built into it as well where they won't respond to certain things because they don't want to get sued either, right? So that's why I haven't built my own chatbot. I've always used it off of someone like Delphi or MiniChat, where if somebody is trying to get me to say something or get my chatbot to say something, there's certain parameters built in to stop them from like getting, like, there was a whole kick people had a couple of months ago about trying to get ChatGPT to talk about suicide and homicide, and literally they didn't have it in the algorithm to stop it, and so now it's a lot better. And so the way that we get around it is we're still in the loop on it. We're able to automate a lot of stuff, but we're still in the loop, and we have to be, because it's not AGI. So if it was AGI, automated artificial general intelligence, was thinking for itself, that's different. So that's the ways we get around this. We're still in the loop. We get notified if anything becomes inappropriate. We only had that issue twice, but it hasn't gone terrible. And we're also protected by the app that we use, that they don't want to be liable either for something going awry in that case too.
hmm And I see one of our fellows, Jaleisha, her question in the chat almost aligns to what you were talking about. So I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you to speak to that.
Yeah.
She's asking, is it ethical for it to appear that folks are talking to you via AI? Have they caught on? Have they been disappointed? Are you transparent? So you spoke
Yeah.
a little bit to that. So it
Yeah.
feels like it's right to be in the flow to answer more to that. Would you
Yeah,
speak to that,
and
please?
yeah, and so that gets to when I talk about values-based leadership. So one of our values is doing anything short of sin to reach people who are far from God. And so I explain constantly that we create unforgettable experiences. We do anything short of sin. So when it comes to our values, we value innovation, right? We value trying different things. We value that, and we make it very clear. So that's where I get to values-based leadership. So we value trying something different, and if people want to meet with me in person or meet online, we can. But if it's something that's like, what time is service, how much is this event, can we do XYZ, that's where people are able to reach out to automate a lot of our basic mundane
Right.
tasks.
So
So
the
that, but
pastoral care you still keep, but
yes,
the kind of quick questions or
yeah,
the
all of
questions
that.
that can be answered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not preaching
So
a
what
sermon
I'm
via
hearing is
chatbot. Yeah.
differentiating.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is like as you're using this technology, like think about, the places where it makes sense for it to
Exactly.
pop in
Exactly.
versus where it does. I just want to shout out some more of our fellows who joined: Jaleisha Bash, Charlotte McAdams, Rochelle Andrews, Dr. Gail Davis. Glad to have you all in the room, the title fellows in the room. Okay, listen, the chat is jumping. The chat is jumping. I'm gonna guide the Q&A because I've kind of been able to see the order they've come in. There is a question from George who sent it to me via direct message a while ago and was having difficulty sending it to the everyone chat. So I'm gonna
Okay.
read it for you so you have context. So from George, who's in the room, he says, I teach and preach pastoral care and counseling in India. Would you mind talking about the challenges and opportunities that AI brings to this field in which I deal with people's feelings and emotions? His question: can the machines feel, empathize, and express emotions?
Yeah.
If they do, they will take over this ministry pretty soon, I suppose. So that's the full sentiment of his question. And George, if you want to come off camera and wave at us, you are welcome to. But yeah, would you mind speaking to
Yeah.
that?
So that's where I was mentioning earlier about job replacement. So ChatGPT 4.0, the most recent iteration of ChatGPT, is the first time we began to hear in voices emotion. So they laughed a little. This is the first time we've been able to hear like emotion in it. But we are, like I said earlier, we're years away from it. But that's why education on this information, so that we are controlling it, I think is so important. Now, if we're saying harmful, that's the part where in terms of like, so Huang and Russ job theory of job replacement has our responsibility, anything that's dealing with emotion and people's feelings. We're about 20 years away, they believe, but COVID accelerated everything to 10 years, but we're about 20 years away post COVID from the technology being readily accessible for us to even have emotional conversations with people without having a person involved. So we need AGI plus humanoid robots plus content to be put in for that. So we're years away from it, but I do think an opportunity to use is a pastoral care chatbot, right? So using Delphi, for example, like this is do some work on it, but using Delphi, getting an example to get your language, how you communicate to people, your work involved if somebody wanted to have an off hours conversation that you always can end up stopping it after 5 messages or whatever, like most of these companies do. But right now, I hate to be a doomsday thinker, but if AGI actually becomes a thing, it is very possible for it to have a great impact. And I don't want to say take over because that's my job too, but have a great impact on pastoral care because the thing that freaked me out about ChatGPT 4.0, this is the first time we saw emotion. We're far away from it being consistent, but this is the first time we saw emotion. So it's some time away, but it's an opportunity for us to teach and train systems and to make sure that we are involved in the coding and the development so that we can be involved in making sure the right information gets to people. But it's very possible if the technology evolves to impact pastoral care and spiritual care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I would offer to this point and to this question is that, again, this is tech we know is happening. So I'm gonna keep saying it like a broken record. What we want to do as faith leaders is to figure out what it is, to embrace the portions of it that help us, and to sound the alarm about the portions that harm us. Because to act like it doesn't exist won't help, right? And so once it starts to try to replicate emotions and all of that, from an AI perspective, that's a great time for faith leaders to be loud about what to look out for that's inconsistent, right? So, technology, for instance, you mentioned ideogram. Ideogram does, it's like a chat GPT for graphic design, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've tried ideogram, and ideogram gets very close, but it messes up some things because it's iterating, but it still doesn't get everything. So there might be the word might be misspelled, a very common word, the might have two E's instead of one, or there might be little things, right? And so part of our work, as we try to lean forward in tech and innovation, is we might in the next few years have to start training people how to source through bias. I remember when I was in college, all of my professors used to say, I'm in my late 30s. So when I was in college, Wikipedia was new, Facebook was new. Don't laugh at me, everybody who's younger than me, and everybody who's my age or older, you get it. And so I remember that professors would say, don't use Wikipedia. Anybody can edit it. It's incorrect. It's not reliable. But then as the years passed, we realized that Wikipedia has sources at the bottom. And so you can check the sources, and that might be a quick way, if you're not going to Google Scholar or whatever, to get the right sourcing. And so over time, my point is that we began to look for the inconsistencies and learn where the inconsistencies might be, but then to also embrace the places where this is actually true and these are real facts. Absolutely. I think the same thing is going to be true of, as AI begins to evolve, us having to learn and teach what people should be looking out for so that they can see when something is true and when it is not. I've got a lot of questions, so we're going to rapid fire this. Okay. Yep. Dr. Lester, you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, everybody. We're going to try to get through everybody's questions. So we're gonna go from here a little bit faster. But y'all please track with us, and I think we can do it. All right. So there's a couple of questions on the table. So I'm gonna get to this, and some other folks have asked about it. Dr. Lester mentioned using Claude versus Chat GPT. Could you explain why you recommend it? Is it free? And then I just want to name that Stephen, I love the peer learning that's happening. Stephen has already responded to the fact that Claude does have a free tier. And Stephen is speaking to the ways in which it might be helpful. So there's some work happening in the chat in this peer leading space, which is what we want.
Let me speak 2 seconds on that. Thank you, Stephen. So
go ahead.
ChatGPT 4.0, like 3 weeks ago, was outdoing everyone. Claude 3.5 Sonnet just came out like 2 days ago. and it is incredible. And if you're looking, and the reason I recommend it for faith-based communities, it is far more human than ChatGPT. So you get more human-like responses. Now, if you want this, here's I'll give you two. When you copy and use it, AI undetect or writehuman.ai. So if you're trying to use it to like help write emails or something, and you're like, hey, this sounds kind of AI, like unveiling and all of that. And I have an ebook on this. I know we'll send it out later that actually goes through like better prompting and how all this, but writehuman.ai and AI undetect will help you to bring out like that unveiling and unleashing and all that type of stuff. But Claude is a far better human response than ChatGPT is right now. And that's with their update from cheap Claude 3.5 Sonnet. But ChatGPT is solid. Don't get me wrong, it's great. I would go like Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini. Those are the top three large language models, and then Llama, and that's the one that Meta builds on. But play with all of them. Now, let me say this. I don't know if this is the question, but I mean in this chat, and I'll be quiet. If you're trying to get on board to any large language model, like if you just I want to try images, I want to try this, use Copilot. So use Copilot from Microsoft 365, and just have some fun. It has images built in, music built in, and it's based on ChatGPT 4. No, yeah, 4. It's based on ChatGPT 4. It might have some for 4.0, but if you're looking to just get on, do that. But if you're past that, like you already kind of know what you want to do, use that. Use Claude. And then Dr. Gabby mentioned Ideogram. Ideograms, it's kind of I think it's based, I forgot what it's based on. But try Copilot's image generation that's using DALI 3, and then the Meta's generation, image generation is probably one of the best I've seen in terms of putting text in, and then Pika gives you text and art. And the cool thing about Meta, and I'll put these in the chat later, the cool thing about Meta is you can animate all your images too. So you can put the image in and you can automatically animate it on meta.ai. But that's my ranking: Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, and then Llama 3.
I love it. Again, I want to amplify. This will be available for replay on our YouTube channel. Also, want to shout out another one of our fellows dropped into the chat, Dr. Di. I see you in the chat. I'm glad you're here. Di Bogues. I realized that I did not go to the second screen, which is why I missed you earlier. So forgive me for that. I also got to shout out Ken Miles, a colleague of mine who's here, who actually was one of the founding members of my church.
Oh, wow.
And he did a lot of the tech activations
I love it.
for my church in Brooklyn. So I got to shout him out. Okay, I've got a question here. Let's backtrack a little bit. Someone has asked me in the direct message, if you're new to AI, what is the best place to start? So let's slow up a little bit.
Yep.
Let's talk about someone who just wants to get immersed.
Yep.
What do you recommend?
Copilot.microsoft.com. It's free. If you have Microsoft 365, you get a version of it. Copilot, you can ask it to write a song for you, ask it to make an image for you, ask it to help you with prompts. And the great thing about Copilot, if you ask it a question similar to Wikipedia, it gives you its sources, right? So I would start at Copilot and stay at Copilot. It's the basic onboarding. You can ask it whatever. That's a great place to start.
And let me
Beyond
ask you
there,
this.
yep.
Sorry. I want to ask you this too. For folks who are like, before I try it, I
Mhm.
want to read about it. I want to learn about it. For the scholars in the room, because we know
Yeah.
they're here. Give me that too.
Yeah, I mean, shameless plug. I wrote a book on it.
That's why we have you here.
Yeah. So
That's
shameless plug. So
fine. That's
actually,
fine.
it's called "What the Heck Is AI?" and the Church of AI. It's on my website, jrlester.com or Amazon. But in that book, I go through like what is artificial intelligence, where did it come from. So like this stuff has been back since 1919. Honestly, when we saw intelligence outside of humanity. But yeah, so I have this book for those of you in the marketplace. Nothing Christian about this book. What or yeah, religious about this book. What the heck is AI? It's just to the point. What is it? And then the Church of AI, if you're looking to do things in your church. And then also on my website, which we'll send out, I have a free ebook that actually goes through this, jrlester.com/AI church. And you can download a free ebook, and you can see I have my top 200 tools to try on there, and then I give you recommendations on how to use a lot of these tools as well in my ebook, and all of that. So that's to me, if you're looking for research on it, I would love to. I'm an AI adjacent leader, and so I would love to engage in that with you, and hopefully I tried to explain it in such a way for people who've like, I'm not going to engineering school, so what in the world is this stuff? And that's why I wrote this book. what the heck is AI? And so if you're trying to figure it out, it's all in there. I think it's a great starting point. Also, YouTube. So I know for millennials, the number one search engine is YouTube. For Gen Z, it's starting to 56% of them are using AI as their new search engine. So this is where too, if we're looking to reach another generation, it's a whole other conversation. 56% of Gen Zers are using AI daily for their general tasks. And so I highly suggest, like I said, Copilot, if you want to learn about it first. I and the work I did on it, source and everything, the two books I had, What the Heck is AI and The Church of AI.
I love it. Okay. I want to get a couple more rapid fire questions to you. Sally raised a question. You mentioned we need to advocate for ethics regarding AI, which might be rooted in what I was talking about, but I still would love for you to take it. She's asking, what is a good first step as it relates to advocating for ethics? I'm going to add to her question also as it relates to, really being on the wall to advocate against bias and against untruths. We are living in a time period where lies are truth and truth sound like lies. And
absolutely.
Once it is built into technology and taught to people, it's hard to prove that 2 + 2 is not 5, but that it's 4. So how would you speak to that? And also, there's another question, which I think you can take with this from Megan, who's saying, how would you respond to AI inherently biased because coding is created by humans? So I think that question is centering the human element of the tech.
So all of it, all that gets to, so a couple things. One, for your organization, develop an artificial intelligence policy. On my website, masterclass, I have one on that where I literally give you put your organization's name in there, have a policy on artificial intelligence on terms of use, engagement, all of that. In terms of our community, that's where our advocacy and our engagement and our work is so vital and so important. There's some laws and regulations that are starting to come down, but really it's because of competition of other organizations. That's my analysis of it. The fear of the growth of OpenAI, the fear of the growth of NVIDIA, all of that, and other people being insecure and about it. But be mindful of what's going on in your community. Be intentional to talk to people, whether it's city council or your state legislature, about about the laws and regulations that are coming down on this, because nothing is there yet. So this is the issue with artificial intelligence right now. It's not new. It's just accessible, and there's nothing that's really regulating it hard right now to ensure that truth and all of that. So, for example, Instagram asks you a question when you post an image now, is this made with AI? It's all up to us to say yes or no. I think our space, our intentionality to make sure that we're advocating for honesty and transparency is going to be vital, especially right now in its infancy of regulations and laws. But for your organization, have an AI policy. And I have a sample on my webpage when you go to it, but have an AI policy that's in place for how you use it, when you use it, who can use it, when it's applicable, or when we need to have a human in the loop, or it's just not applicable. It's like, for example, for our church, artificial intelligence cannot be used to update our bylaws, right? It can be used to help with our emails. So we put a policy in place last year so that we know when we can use it, when we can't use it, all of that. So that's where a lot of things I'm talking about are on the back end of a lot of policies and things we put together. But that's to me, a starting point for you internally in your organization, and then externally using our advocacy to change things in our community.
Absolutely. We have time for one closing question, and while they're readying that question, any professional organizations that you are aware of, they might be regional or national. And I say that because for those who want to do this work of justice work, Union is very big on advocacy and social justice. So I know some folks are riled up. They're like, okay, y'all have given us the charge. Who do we go? Who are the powers that be? And so are there already gatherings where folks are gathering and talking about the implications of the ethics and the bias? Either they're ignoring it or embracing it. But are there other kind of professional orgs or places where folks can tap into, get on a listserv, get on a newsletter? Share that.
Enterprise Kiosco Research. Let me find this. I went to their conference down at Kiosco Research. I'm trying to make sure I have the name right. Enterprise AI Summits. They're all across the country. Wonderful space. I went there. Some of the greatest leaders in the field actually are doing that, along with, I would say, Blackest Tech, Afro Tech, places like that are great. Then also, I had it on the tip of my tongue and I forgot. But Kiosco Research, I think, Google, just not Google it, but Google itself. So I met a couple leaders at Google, and they're actually really intentional about teaching and training, and making sure, and learning from the people in our community. So just Google itself and their community foundation and organization. They are wonderful of just making sure that this stuff is accessible, intentional, and learning, and they're continually learning. So that's the Google Foundation, Kiosco Research, and Blackest Tech, Afrotech, conferences like that, conferences that are particularly for minority communities, and intentional about it. And so when I was at Blackest Tech, I mean, there were whole tracks on just ethics and implementation. Kiosco Research, they had our whole conference, Enterprise Generative AI Summit, that I've gone to, and they're all regional. So Enterprise AI Summit's $189 ish, and it's regional, but they do an amazing work on just like ethics and implementation, understanding, and education. And that Enterprise Generative AI Summit is wonderful. Yeah.
I love it. I also just want to just this was just dropped in the chat, but it feels worthy of a screen share.
Oh, please go.
ALJ, leading a cultural movement towards equitable and accountable AI. Right. So thank you, Ken, for dropping that in the chat. AJL, excuse me, is mission is to raise public awareness about the impacts of AI, equip advocates with resources to bolster campaigns, et cetera, et cetera. Galvanize researchers, policymakers, industry practitioners. A lot of the work that we do at TIDEL, we remind our fellows as well as those who are in community with us that many of our resources are going to be outside of the faith-based world.
Absolutely.
And then we get to bring that into the faith-based world. So this is not a faith-based org, but we need to join forces with other industries to do this work. I love it. Okay. Would you please give your website again, Dr. Lester? There's a request for more work with you, and I want to amplify some of the work you already do in the form of webinars and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so I want to encourage everyone who's joined us to please potentially take advantage of some of those offerings that Dr. Lester has. I also want to shout out Charlotte McAdams, who's one of our fellows who's in the chat. She and her organization do some work on AI, and they have a workshop this Friday. So Charlotte, if you would drop that in the chat as well, so that folks can be a part of that work. And then again, everyone, continue to track with TIDEL. We're committed to having these important conversations in an ongoing way. But please, Dr. Lester, share about your website and anything you have upcoming that you'd like folks to be connected to.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Gabby. Yeah. So jrlester.com. If you go there and if you click on jrlester.com/AI Church is my free ebook. Bookstore there as well. I have an AI masterclass where I actually go through this in very slow walkways, and I also give a consult to wherever you are, whether it's your church or organization, on how to implement artificial intelligence. We do like a discovery call and then engage with you there. And then also I have webinars I do monthly. My next one's actually tomorrow. I have a webinar that's online. I have one for the East Coast and the West Coast at 7 p.m. wherever you are. And that's where we're going to just take a look at the history of artificial intelligence and then 10 apps to use immediately. And we practice it together. If it's about an hour to an hour and a half. So that's tomorrow. And if you go to jrlester.com, click on bookstore, you'll see the webinar, select the time you want, you'll get the link for it. And so it'll be fun. I enjoy this. And for me, what I like about the classes I try to offer is not just like, hey, this is a class to sell a master class. It's literally, hey, what's your business name? Let's build a website. What's your business name? Let's build let's build out some stuff for you. And so I have some fun. I enjoy doing this work. And then also, like I said, I have 2 books on this, and then I also have an ebook as well. And I put the ebook in the chat, and I know we'll send it out to, but whatchamacallit, here's the ebook. This is my most recent one, so I just updated it yesterday. So there's so many tools.
Fresh off the press.
Yeah, so there's so many tools that have been updated just as of like the last week and a half, and some that have died. And so I try to remove some, but so that's where you'll see the top tools I have. And then lastly, my Instagram at that tech pastor, one word. And I do I update on technology. Right now I'm doing a series on Canva that starts next week, and series just really on updating what technology is. So like today you can see a video of what does GPT mean in Chat GPT, right? And so I want to just educate people on technology and also the best tools to use for your organization. So I appreciate this opportunity. I never really excel myself, but this is fun and I love this work. I think it's amazing. I think the future is at hand, and I'm grateful for all of you for your desire. And I hope there was something engaging today. I love pouring out and hope to talk to some of you soon.
No, absolutely. And listen, last 3 minutes, give me one thing that as folks are embracing AI, they should also look out for.
Artificial general intelligence. this what I'm seeing across the water is that China and so not just that, but BRICS. If you have not heard of BRICS, while we were sleeping, BRICS is getting stronger, and that's was it Britain, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and all these other countries, and getting together, and they're getting stronger when it comes to fuel, and they're getting stronger as it comes to like coming together. We're not on the verge of a war, but I think we have to be mindful of the stuff that's happening while we're sleeping. And
Mhm.
so I would artificial general intelligence and how humanoid robots are going to be a thing in China by the end of 2025. So if we're going to be on the lookout, I think it's educating ourselves on robotics, educating ourselves on job replacement, and making sure that we're empowering people to be a part of this and not be. I believe our community leads the culture, not the other way around. And
Yeah.
so, because of that, it is our responsibility to be educated and knowledgeable of robotics, what's going on, cryptocurrency, know about it, do your own research on it. Don't just trust the YouTube scholar or the podcaster who got a mic in front of them, right? But do your work on it, understand what's going
Yeah.
on in your community, and then realize, like Dr. Gabby said earlier, it's different for every community. So what works here may not work there, but know what's right for your space and do your work on it, and you're good to go. So yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Listen, we're right at the 1 hour. What a robust conversation. Thank you so much. Again, Charlotte, one of our fellows, is doing a conversation this Friday on AI tech and the future of human care. So that link is in the chat. Share the chat, save the chat. There's so much wonderful information here. Thank you, everybody, for creating a peer learning space. And our next conversation is next month. So at the end of the month, I believe we're the last Thursday of next month. So look out for information about our next speaker. And thank you for joining us. Dr. Lester, thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you.
Everyone take care.
God bless you guys.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.